Hello, I'm Jim Miller. I'm here with Terrence Moore. The FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. We're pleased to have with us tonight Tim Henry, President and Chief Executive Officer of F&M Trust out of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, but you have branches far beyond Chambersburg. Welcome, Tim.
Right. Nice to be here, Jim.
Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
Banking is a service that everybody needs, but I think a lot of people have questions, and we're hoping you can help us answer some of those.
I'll do the best that I can.
Can you start out by telling a bit about your history and how you got into banking and why it's your career of choice?
Sure. I'll give you the medium version and not the extended version. But born up in State College, Pennsylvania, grew up in California, came back east for college, got hooked into farming, believe it or not. Quit college, worked on a farm for a couple of years, decided that's what I wanted to do, went to Penn State to get a degree. One thing led to another. I never got back to farming. I got hired by Farm Credit, an ag lender, and then that led me into banking, and I built a career from that. So I'm a dairy science major in banking. And it's been a great career for me and something I've really enjoyed. And I think an honorable career. I think community banks in particular are really a big cog in the community as far as keeping money rolling, that depositors can make money, and that money in turn is going right back into the community in the form of loans to businesses that then employ people, and you continue to circle the money around.
Excellent.
And we get the opportunity to be a part of that. And there are a lot of projects here in Hagerstown that over my career I've been a part of, and there's a satisfaction knowing that you could play a part in making some things come together.
Excellent.
I spent 20 years in a kind of one of those banking conglomerates, right? I worked for a large financial institution internationally, and it became somewhat of a faceless organization.
Sure.
The word community bank was fairly new to me, even after 20 years of banking, until I came into this region.
Right.
What is community banking, and what is the difference between what we think about when we think about some of the larger corporations?
Sure. I joke that community banking means you know whose neck to grab if something's going wrong. But there's more than an ounce of truth to that, because if something's going wrong and it's your money, you want somebody who's accountable to you, somebody that you can talk to solve a problem. A community banker can do that because we aren't at distance. We aren't a 1-800 number or a phone bank. Any of the customers of F&M Trust, if they have a problem, they can call me, and I will talk to them, and I have talked to them at times. So that's kind of, it's a little bit silly, but there's a lot of bit of truth to that. But a community bank, in its heart and soul, I kind of touched on just kind of the background. Our investments are all here within this community. If I'm a larger bank, and I don't hold against them, but they may say, boy, there's low-cost deposits in Hagerstown, Washington County, and I can take that money to San Diego, Texas, Florida, and invest it there and get a higher return than to lend it right back here. Or they might say there's more multi-million-dollar opportunities in a different market, and maybe in Hagerstown the average opportunity is $500,000. It's not enough for that large bank. Doesn't make them wrong. We aren't financing ocean liners, right? But when we're lending money, it's all coming right back into the community that the deposits are coming from. And that's an important differentiation, because otherwise you could have certainly communities where the deposit dollars are off somewhere, but the businesses that need the money to grow and build have a hard time finding those funds then.
And I'll just piggyback on that. I know one of the biggest things, maybe 15 years ago, but maybe less, was a drive to digital, right? It was about stop customer interactions, the phone calls, the interactions, drive them to the apps, drive them to the websites, And like you said, that 1-800 number it was going even away from the 1-800 number.
Right.
Like they even want the phone calls coming in
Right.
to some institutions now, and they really wanted to do interaction with. And now we're going to AI, right?
Right.
Now, even when you go online, you can't even get someone to speak to. You're speaking to a robot who's acting
Right.
like a person right now. How do you balance the benefit of knowing your customer, interacting with your customer, being that face when somebody can walk into a branch or pick up the phone and call somebody directly, yet the efficiency of costs to drive someone to digital? What's the benefit of each way, and why does Community Bank choose more so the face-to-face interaction?
Well, actually, we have to do both.
Right.
And it's one of the challenges. I don't have a violin out saying, oh, woe is me. It's just one of the challenges. People want to be able to work through their phone. If they can do this, it's not just the younger generations, older generations too. There's a misperception that if you're over 60, you aren't using your phone. That's not true. The over 60 is also using the phone. And many times that's the most convenient way to do it. You're somewhere other than by the branch. But we're finding people still want to know, one, there's a branch if I need it, there's a person there if I need it, and they have some personal connection to somebody at the bank who's going to represent for them if there's a problem, represent for them if there's an issue, or for many people, a residential mortgage is a complex and large decision for them. And they may want to have, many times do want to have, somebody to work with them through the process because it's new to them. It's something, scary is the wrong word to use, but unknown. And so they rather have a person do it. Rocket Mortgage does a great job in some ways, but if you look at their performance as of late, people are finding out it's hard if you run into a problem. If everything goes slick, no worries. If there's a glitch, and life glitches happen, then they need a person to help them through that.
I've always, and total transparency, I was in community banking for 15 years at the start of my career.
My competitor.
That's true. That's true. I'm amazed that the community banks today, there is not a technology gap between the community banks and the very large banks.
Right.
There is, however, a personal gap between the community banks, meaning that you have that choice of talking to the person at the community bank. You may not have that choice at the much larger bank. So for me, the reason I choose community banks is because it's of the choice. Right. It gives me the opportunity, if I want to talk to someone, if it's something new to me, even though I might be able to do it online, there's very few things that are black and white. And when they are black and white, they're usually catastrophic. Everything else is nuanced.
Right.
And to take something that's extremely nuanced and be able to talk to someone who's had 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years experience is very beneficial in my view.
No, I agree with you, and I think for a lot of people, once they realize that benefit, they hang on to it. One of our challenges, though, is people look at a community bank and make the assumption they can't do digitally or, from a technology perspective, what a Bank of America or the larger banks can do. You're right. If you compare the things the average person is going to use, our systems are as good as any of the others. It's been technology is a leveler of the playing field in many, many ways. But we need to do a better job of letting people know that we have that technology.
The other thing that occurs to me, and maybe you can address this, the bigger banks, it's all about the numbers. It's all about your credit score. It's all about this. They don't know what Hagerstown needs. They don't know what Washington County needs. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be about the credit score, because it absolutely should. But there are those edge cases that may go one way or the other. And it may be in a situation where the community is underserved. Can you talk to me about how community banking serves those underserved communities, either through that type of interaction or others?
Well, and rather talk about the big banks, because they have their challenges. It has to be about the numbers because of their size. For us, it has to be about the community because this is our only market. We aren't all over the map.
You're not lending in New York.
We aren't lending in New York, and so we've got to pay attention to our communities. You'll find that most community banks give a fair bit back into the community, whether it's volunteer efforts, dollars into the organizations, and we tend to, if you compare us with the larger banks, we'll be giving more, we'll be punching over our weight class, right?
Right.
But there's a reason for that. And I'd love to say it's totally altruistic, but we want our communities to be healthy. You want where you're doing business. And it's not just banks, it's anybody who's doing business in Hagerstown, Washington County wants the community, the area to be successful. And to do that, you have to invest. And this is one of the ways we invest back in the community. And hopefully it brings benefit that ultimately we'll get a little piece of it. So it's semi-altruistic, and it's a little bit of, it's good for all of us, and we're part of all of us.
The other trend as I was leaving banking was a trend definitively away from brick and mortar. I still see brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Where are we on that path?
So I think what the banks have learned, they all had this dream of cutting costs and there'd be no bricks, clicks instead of bricks, right?
Okay.
And what we have learned is people do want that branch. Sometimes they will never, and they'll say proudly, I've never stepped a foot inside that branch, but it's an anchor, it's a flag that they know I have them here and I can count on them. And this is, for the big banks are putting branches down again in a big way, as well as the community banks. But they are changing. We're in the process of building a new branch and up in Pennsylvania. Instead of 3,500 square feet, it'll be about 1,700 square feet because you just don't need the huge lobbies. Thursday and Friday night, everybody's not there, depositing or cashing
Right.
a paycheck. Things have changed. And so 1,700 square feet with experts housed in there who can handle mortgages, handle investments, handle the things that people aren't going to do on their phone. Right? Look at that silly move. You know what we're doing here.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have it housed with people like that.
I would say too, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think a mindset, I know that some of the banks a few years ago as well were buying up the smaller community banks because they wanted to use them as kind of billboards, because seeing your local bank when you drive by gives you a level of confidence of where your money also is as well, and your investments are as
Right.
well. And they weren't putting as much effort into the community banks as the people, because also the people who work in the bank live in the community
That's
as
exactly
well,
right.
So you have that kind of relationship and that buildup as well, and that goes back to, and I sit on a number of boards, and I can say that the financial institutions out here, including yours, are very generous into what they give into the community, and it's not nickel and diming. It's not telling these organizations what to do with the money. It is a mindset that a rising tide lifts all ships,
Right.
and a stronger community. And with that kind of build on that analogy, you also have a speedboat kind of versus the battleship kind of approach. So when things change and the economy changes, something like COVID hits,
Right.
you can maneuver in a way and support the business community and your communities different from what some of the larger institutions that really take a slower time going through. You're making sure they align every branch across the country and nationally, and you can really get in there and help. Tell me about what you saw some of the community banks do during the time like COVID.
Yeah. COVID's an interesting time because I think across the country, I can't say this is just an F&M trusting, but community banks across the country really jumped in. And the larger banks stutter-stepped.
Yes,
They did not jump in. And as a result, we have some customers that maybe left larger banks because they were being held in the lurch at a time that was, a couple of years back, but you can probably remember, it was very scary. And that first month in particular was very scary for people. And the community banks were agile and did rise to the call for their community, their customers. And it is something, there's inherent differences between very large and small. Very large can do some things we cannot do, and I totally respect that. At the same time, if I stay in my lane and worry about the community, there's things I can do that they can't do because it doesn't make financial sense for them to do. Not because they're evil people or bad people, it just doesn't make financial sense for them to do that, where it does for us.
There was a there was a list, a number of lists for some of the COVID-related government secured loans or whatever the case may
Yeah,
be.
the PPP loans.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was amazed looking at those lists, the percentage of them around here that were from community banks versus the larger institutions. It was, I mean, I don't know exactly, but it was clearly well over 50%.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was being,
You're
I
being
was,
very kind there.
Yeah.
But again, we had the ability, and they had some fearfulness. And I can't speak for, I wasn't in the shop, but what I've read, there was some fearfulness as what the government was going to do, and if they go in a big way, could this come back and whack them? And the community banks basically took the attitude, you're my customer, you're being challenged right now, we'll take care of you, and then we'll figure it out on the backside. And that's what happened.
No,
So-
absolutely.
from a technology standpoint, there's multiple parts. So obviously the first part is, can I have online banking? Can I have telephone
Right.
banking? Although I don't know that I've used telephone banking in the
It's
last
been a while since
been a
many
while.
people have. Still
But
gets used.
regardless, but what about on the back end? The product offerings, are the community bank products in line with what the bigger banks are offering in your view?
They are. For instance, now, I don't do foreign leverage transactions.
Okay.
Right. So within my lane,
Right.
but my lane is the lane of the community.
Right.
So there may be one or two companies that have a need that we can't meet. We've got a pretty diverse community here that has a lot of different types of companies, but 95% of the companies, 95% of the people here, we have the products that they need, including last year towards the end of March, around this time a year ago, Silicon Valley, First Republic, these problems, and Silicon Valley goes out of business, and it turns out that basically their depositors were uninsured, right? 92% of our depositors are insured. They're either collateralized or have FDIC insurance. There's ways to do. We take a little bit of a hit to be able to offer the insurance over $250,000. But we take that for our customer because in the end, well, some banks were worried that depositors were going to flee because they were uninsured. We weren't sweating too much in April because we had insured any customer of ours who wanted to be insured. We had them covered. We had that 8% that said, nope, don't need it. That's fine. But we at least talked to them, and we've been doing this for years. So, the using ICS, for example, to insure deposits. This is old. We've been doing this for, at that time, over 10 years.
And I'm sorry,
Some-
ICS is?
So it's a way to get you your FDIC insurance.
Okay.
And I'll leave it there. We'll spend the
Okay.
whole hour discussing it. But a year ago, ICS was being talked about as if it's this brand new thing that's hit the market. It had been around for 10 years. Again, it costs a little bit for us to offer the service, but if it protects you and you want it, we're going to give it to you.
Interesting.
ICS Cedars is another program. And don't ask me, they're all acronyms. If you ask me in front of all these good people, I'm in trouble.
Okay.
Jim brought up the underserved community, kind of expanding on the underserved community and taking that into our small business community.
Yeah.
There's been a big boom, as you know, with small businesses and first-time business owners and minority business owners.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier of how scary it was to go through a mortgage.
Right.
It's just as scary as becoming a business owner and understanding how you get access to capitals to sustain your
Right.
business. Community banks, what are you doing? What do you have in place, or what are you working on? What are you seeing that really supports maybe the small businesses or the first-time business owners especially?
Sure. So for us, we have a division just aimed at that. We have commercial lenders that do, for us, larger relationships, and we have business bankers. We have one here in town, Matt Wenger. His focus is on smaller businesses, startup businesses, the businesses that are just getting underway. I'll say, does the bank make a whole lot of money off of those? Nope, we don't. But, and this comes back to the community bank thing. it's part of the fabric of the community. And so you invest in that because, and not, again, not altruistic, 10 years from now, it might be a big business, who knows? But that small business has 2 employees who have families, again, it sounds a little Mayberry RFD maybe, or I don't know. It's what we are though.
Relationships.
And 100%, and respect. And, you know, sometimes anybody can get excited about the really big relationship. If you're a good community banker, you get excited about the small relationships that you were there and helped somebody start something up from scratch. And I'll tell you, 5 years later, and they're still cooking, doing whatever they're doing, there is insight. They did all the work, so you can't claim any of that. But you feel good that you helped get them started, and you see
Provide the
their
opportunity.
families going and whatnot. And I'd be lying if, you know, this is why, you know, at least at F&M, the one day we ran a survey, why are you here? Because like anything, boy, if you work at F&M, if you want to make more money, you can probably go find a job. There's always something more. So they could find more money if that's what they wanted to. 90% of the employees at F&M are doing it because they want to make an impact on the community. That's why they're there. And yes, they could maybe go somewhere else and make a couple more bucks, but they can't get the
Personal
return
satisfaction. Yep.
of being, you know, a part of the community that they live in, that their kids are growing up in. It matters. Everybody, no. But 90%, that's what. And I would think in most community banks, we aren't special in that way. That's what's driving most of the people.
I want to talk about security. I want to
Okay.
talk about financial literacy. I want to talk about products.
Yeah.
And I want to do that after we take a commercial break.
Okey-doke.
Stay with us. We'll be back with Tim Henry. Once again, we're here with Tim Henry, President and Chief Executive Officer of F&M Trust in Chambersburg. Tim, thank you for staying with us.
Yeah, this has been fun so far.
Let's talk about security. You know, you hear so many stories of scams and you know, people calling and so forth. I don't hear nearly as many stories about banks getting hit. I know security has got to be the forefront of your mind and every banker. Can you talk to us a little bit how you make sure that your customers' deposits are secure, or your customers' accounts are secure, I should say?
So security comes from a whole number of different things. You have physical security and your alarms and cameras and whatnot that protects the people first, and then their money. And of course, you got the FDIC insurance. What you're really driving, though, is all the scams that are out there. And we have a risk management department that is just focused on protecting our customers from scams. Because I'll tell you, there are a lot of scammers out there, and they win sometimes. If the customer lets us know what's going on, assuming we haven't picked up on it, which sometimes we do, if they let us know early on, many times we can get the money back, because the money typically is in the system. It's not leaving. If it's a scam, digitally, money's being pulled out and sent somewhere, and we can track it down and many times pull it back. But you need the customer to tell you. We watch every day for suspicious transactions, something that's out of the norm for a given customer. It starts at the teller line. You know, if somebody comes in, they're doing something that's very different than what they normally do. We'll ask a question or two, trying to get a sense of, is this normal, or is somebody being coerced into doing something? You know, somebody walks in and says, I want to take $15,000 out in cash today, and they've never done that. And I'll say, particularly the elderly, you start to wonder, are they being coerced into doing this? And there are steps we can take and bodies that we can alert, you know, legal bodies to to try to protect that customer. Romance scams are going on all the time. You just would not believe how people prey on the lonely. And I think for our communities, and now I'm getting a little off base, but
No, this is perfect.
Loneliness is a huge issue. And if you talk to, Dr. Joshi, for instance, he would tell you loneliness is a serious issue. Meredith even has a program I'm part of that I have somebody I call on a regular basis that identified they're by themselves, their wife passed, they're lonely, and at least they know I'll touch base with them. And it's a huge problem. Well, the bad guys know this too. And the number of scams where somebody will be pulling money out and they're sending it to their boyfriend in England who's coming to visit them. And we'll tell them, you do not have a boyfriend in England. Oh, yes, I do. And that loneliness in the sense that there's somebody out there that cares about you overrides common sense. This is going on all the time. And I think for our customers, you hate to say it, the first line of defense is common sense. And if it looks too good to be true,
It is.
don't trust it.
Right.
And call the bank. I've got a team of people that can look into it and see, help you find out, is this real or is this a scam? And that's what we do because we want to protect our customers' money. It'd be terrible if we didn't make those efforts. Like I say, I have people employed just for that because it's so prevalent. It's not one-offs, it's every week.
But that's everybody in your organization. And get me, correct me if I'm wrong. Even protecting internally from phishing and social engineering and things like that. That means you have to have people internally who are qualified and trained and understand the newest trends.
Yep.
But you did speak on something that's not easy to train with a compliance training. It's knowing your customer and having a conversation, right? Knowing that something's out of the ordinary because this customer comes in every day and may take out $25 and all of a sudden they're taking out $2,500. How do you keep your staff proficient outside of just the compliance, but just being open and conversationalists with this with your customer that comes into the building?
Yeah. And it really is. I wish I had a fancier answer. It's training, and training, and we do it. We do it digitally, online. We do it in person. We recently established new headquarters for the bank, and one of the reasons was we needed more training room space. We're now 300 employees. The training room that we had was totally inadequate for what we needed to do, and to bring people in and talk through these things and. It is about training, making people aware of what's going on. And you talk about phishing, which is an issue for the bank. Many times your weakest link is the employee that falls for a phishing scam. And we do phishing tests regularly, and everybody gets them. I get them too. So far, I shouldn't say this, knock on wood. I haven't fallen for it yet. But they're clever. And you can fall for them. I mean, the bad guys are usually really smart guys. If you could get them on the other side of the fence, they'd be making
great
money without having to worry about the law. But you just train and test. And we hold an environment that, if you fail, it's not going to be the end of the world for you. We had a situation, and I don't mind saying it, where an employee, second they hit the button, they realized they'd gotten phished. But they called the IT team immediately because they realized they goofed up, and we were able to lock it down. Nobody got touched. But you have to have an environment where that employee was not scared for their job because they made a mistake.
Right.
They knew, okay, made a mistake. Man, if they do it a couple of times, we've got to find a different job for them. But you have an environment that, okay, I'm not going to get dinged for doing this, and we could shut it down right away. If you don't have that environment, people will hide stuff. It's the natural, I got to protect my own skin, and that creates a bigger problem.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to just kind of go transition there and says training internally. What about externally? How do you address financial literacy? and not only protecting yourself and protecting your customers, but how do you train outside of your building and into your communities? I think Jim was about to go.
That's exactly where I was
same
going.
direction.
A
there
mind
as well.
meld here. You guys have been doing this a while.
Once or twice.
Yeah. So we have outside groups that come in and train us, and we have people, for instance, in town here, we've had a person that works with first-time buyers for homes to train on the mortgage side. In the schools, we work with a company called Bonsai, and we have put their program, the financial literacy program, into a number of schools, middle and high school, to start teaching kids about financial literacy. I think at the moment, we've hit primarily Pennsylvania schools, and we have not worked. So if Washington School District wants to call, we can see what we can do there. I don't think we have anything in school here. I could be wrong on that. But it's an important part of what we do, and particularly with the youth. We're finding more and more, somebody's coming out of college and has no idea how to navigate things financially. If they've had the phone and Apple Pay,
Right.
and if the parents have been supplying the money on the back, you buy things by double click.
Right.
And you have no idea, and then all of a sudden you've got rent, utility bills, groceries, and people are just lost.
And credit card offers that give you high balance.
Sure,
And
sure. While you're in
you
college.
can get into trouble with.
Yep.
And I've seen that happen
Yeah,
before.
and it happens not just to college kids, but all it is, here's somebody's taking the next level of education, but they really don't have a good idea of how to operate in the world.
When I was in college, I know it doesn't. I don't think they can do it like this anymore. But on college campuses, if I needed a clean T-shirt, I would go sign up for a credit card. If I wanted a
Right.
free sub, I would sign up for a credit card.
Yeah.
And my Social Security number was out there, and I was destroying my credit before I even knew what credit actually
Right.
was. And when it came to the opportunity to actually use it, and I was in a position where I was already paying thousands of dollars over in interest because I wasn't qualifying and I wasn't able to get the car insurance, and now, to get the apartments and to get the credit cards, to get the car. And when it came to a point in life when I needed my credit, I had already damaged something that I didn't even know existed because I didn't have that connection, and no one was there who can teach me that, even inside my family.
Yeah.
And I think that's a generational gap right there as well, and a cultural gap that in certain cultures, in certain families, in certain communities, you only know what you know.
Yep.
And you only know what your parents knew. And if they didn't know it, you don't know it. And how do you get that information into the communities, into those households? And I think going in through the schools is probably the best way to do it, because they bring that information back. And I working in financial literacy, often enough I've seen the kids teaching their parents more about finance than their parents taught them. And I can say I was one of those people.
Sure. I think too, as a bank, and particularly with underserved communities, we have to make sure we're doing a good job being intentional and that community knowing the door is open to them. I think, as I move around in underserved communities, many times there's a feeling like the bank's not where I belong. And the bank is where they belong. And if a young person came in and sat down with one of our folks and said, look, I'm just getting started in life, what do I need to know? What do I need? We'd be falling all over ourselves to help that young person figure it out. And the resources there. I mean, again, we have 300 employees eager to help somebody learn. It's making sure they know the door's open to them, and then that they have the gumption to take that step.
The notion of financial literacy, the elements of financial literacy that you need change over your lifetime. Obviously, when you're young and you're starting out, you need to know about credit cards, you need to know about starting savings, you need to know that, if you put a little away now every week, by the time you retire, you got a big amount, right? Talk to me about some of the other financial literacy. You mentioned the mortgage program and the fact that the community banks do a great job of helping people navigate that first-time mortgage or the first-time home equity line. What are the other areas that you see important that you feel like you provide financial literacy training, either officially or unofficially as they're sitting around a desk with them?
Right. So a lot of people have ideas for, I want to start a business. And many times they don't know where to begin. How do I start a business? If they come into the bank and sit down with us, and this isn't an overnight thing, but they'll find we don't charge. We aren't getting paid hourly. We'll sit with them and start to guide them along. In the end, it's their business, but here are the things you need to be thinking about. Here are the professionals that you may want an accountant as part of your team. It may be too early. The person might not be able to afford an accountant at that time. But we can guide them along the path so they can actually get from A to B to C to D and get going. That's a type of financial literacy. For a young person, we'd be telling them, get the checking account, get the credit card, pay off the credit card balance every month. I know there's this idea that you got to carry the balance over and carry credit. Don't do that, But have the card, use it, pay it off at the end of the month,
Right.
show that consistency. And boy, when you go to the bank and say, now I need a car loan, the bank's going to do that. They absolutely are going to do that because you've already started to establish you're serious about this and you understand the responsibility of it. And in the end, bank lending money, some of the folks in my shop will get after me on this, but this is all just, it's a people business. The numbers matter. Numbers tell a story, but you need to know the person and understand. I can look at the same numbers, and it could be two different stories. It could be the numbers of someone on the upswing or someone on the downswing. And if I don't take the time to hear the story and get to know what they're all about, I can totally misinterpret those numbers. So it is a people game.
Again, I think it goes right back to what you said about building those relationships. I just want to get your opinion on, we're in an information age.
Right.
And we talked about the information's out there. But I think we got into the point where there's too much information out there. And there's not enough valid information or someone substantiating that information. And would you say building a relationship with your community bank or someone in your community bank, if you see one of these YouTube rumors you can buy a Mercedes with your business and you don't have to pay for it, and some of these wild, ambiguous pieces of information that you can find on the internet that really don't hold true or may not be correct for your circumstance. Yeah. How easy is it for me to pick up the phone and call somebody at your bank and say, hey, I have a question?
Yeah, it's real easy because we'll want to answer it. It's even easier if a year ago you picked your branch and you met somebody and you started developing a relationship. So when you call in, you can say, hey, Jennifer, this is what I saw. Or John, I've been approached on this. What do you think? I so encourage people. It's a different type of investment. But if you're banking locally, make sure you know somebody. Know somebody that when you walk in, they know you, you know them, because it's much easier then to pick up the phone. On the bank side, if I don't know who's on the other end, I'm listening, is this a scam? Right? I'm a very public figure. Anybody can get my email, anybody can get my phone number, and people try to pull stuff on me, right? If I know the person, Jim, if you call me, we're going to have very open and easy dialogue because I know who you are and where you're coming from. Well, the branch is the same thing. If you have a branch that, this is my branch, make sure somebody knows you there, because then when you call in, you have these issues. They're already vested in your success, and they want you to succeed and not get hurt.
What do you see in the future for community banks, for banking in general? What is the next big thing?
Yeah. It's a great question, which is, a way of stalling for time and saying, I don't know what the next big thing is. I think everything is in a state of evolution. Always has been, always will be. And banking continues to evolve because our customers evolve and our customers' needs change. And like the ocean tide, and come in and go out, I don't need a branch. Whoop, I do need a branch, you know.
Right.
I want to do everything digital. No, I'm scared of digital. Nobody said let's go back to just paper yet. But
No.
but we keep evolving. AI is out there. It can be a scary thing, but I think it's like any other tool. I mean, I can take a shovel and I can dig a foundation for a house, or I can kill somebody with the shovel. I can use that same tool for two very different things, and one may be heinous and the other something really good. AI, I look at it the same way. There are probably some great things that we can use AI for that'll improve all our lives. And then there's some really heinous things that AI can be used for as well. So, you know, we have a small team of people studying, working with it, and trying to figure out how can we use it for good and how can we minimize the bad. So, you know, if you're in the stock market right now, AI is the new big thing. And
Yeah.
you know, if your company can say, I got anything AI going, your stock's going
Gonna
up
go
a
up.
couple points, right?
Okay.
We have not said we are an AI shop, though, in fact, there's small elements of AI that we are using right now because it's available, it makes sense, and it allows us to take employees. We aren't using AI to, you know, cut staff. What we're using AI for is the low-level jobs, kind of what I'll say a more remedial job, will have it working that, and I can take that person and give them a higher level job, which probably means I can pay them more because they're bringing more value to the organization and actually improve them, versus the idea that you're going to bring AI in and kick everybody out the door.
Right. Right. You always need humans. I just can't. I believe that anyway.
Yeah,
You always need humans.
It's the fundamentals of
I
who
think
we are.
what-
But you want to either assist humans or keep bringing them up so they can do more.
And I think that's exactly where it is. In the technology business, that's what we see. We just see some of the what I'll call grunt work going away and
Right.
being taken over by these. And we need more intelligent people. And we see that. I see that coming out of high school. I see that coming out of colleges. I see that with the people I hire every day. It's a lot different. I was not near as smart as most of the 21-year-olds I hire today. I just wasn't when I was 21.
Tomorrow I'm spending 2 hours doing mock interviews with high school seniors.
Oh, nice.
And I will leave that like I did last year, so enthused for the future. There are a lot of naysayers about the future. Historically, there always has been. You know,
Right.
you get up to my age and nobody's as good as my generation, yada, yada, yada. Wrong. The generation coming up, the 20-year-olds, there are some amazing people. And I'll leave tomorrow's 2-hour session just enthused by what's coming.
That would definitely be fun.
I would take away from that, I agree, there always will have to be a human base because you can't build emotion, and with emotion comes grace.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you spoke about mostly today about community grace. There's a grace in lending because you have the relationships, you know your community, you know your customer in a way that you're able to give the grace outside of the numbers that are spit out of a computer when you fill out an application. So I think because of that, you will always have to have humans in place to offer that grace, to make those decisions that's in the best interest not of the organization, but also in the best interest of the community. So I thank you for the community banking portion of that and offering that grace to our community.
And I appreciate that. And not an argument, but I'll tell you, one of the challenges here is people have to decide, is that what they want? In the last year, you had a lot of people, because it's easy to do, I can get an extra 25 basis points on my deposit by sending it to Eastbo JIP. And I can do it with my phone, right? If everybody takes that attitude and and they move the money out of the community, I will have no funds to lend back into the community. I guaranteed somebody out there has a higher rate than what F&M Trust is paying. I mean, just guarantee. Their situation's different. Maybe they are a tech-only bank, and they don't have any people, you know, or relatively few, and so they can afford to pay more. And each individual has to decide what's important to them. And you know, for community banks as a whole, their ability to thrive in the future will be determined by how much people see us giving back to the community, making a difference to them, right? Or otherwise, it'll disappear just like other things have disappeared.
100%.
Relationships are two-way streets.
Yes.
So it works both ways. Take
does.
care of your community bank, and your community bank can take care of you, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So we have about 10 minutes left in our show. So we're going to take a break
Okay.
right now. Actually, maybe a little less than 10 minutes. But what I'd like to do when we come back is get your view of the financial world and so forth, just at a high level if we can.
Okay.
All right?
Very good.
Stay with us. We'll be back with Tim Henry after this. Welcome back. We're here once again with Tim Henry, President and CEO of F&M Trust. Tim, this has been a great show. We've talked a lot about the benefits of the community banking. We've talked about banking in general. We've talked about financial literacy. I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about rates and economic and the banking industry as a whole. Let's talk first about the banking industry as a whole.
Okay.
There was a big push, there has been a big push to consolidate and have a lot of large banks. You know, I remember many, many years ago, they said, well, we have 10,000 community banks and we're only going to have a quarter of those by the year or whatever it was.
Right.
What is the notion today? What do you see? Is that continuing or?
I think it is continuing, and it'll find an equilibrium where there's enough of both. There's enough of big banks, there's enough of community banks, and you know, it's, again, I make the reference to the ocean. It's my California background, you know. This will come in and go out. You know, one moment it's no branches, next moment there's a bunch of branches. There is a consolidation, no question. And, you're seeing a lot of smaller banks being bought up by other banks. And you have some very, very large banks out there who almost can't buy up any more banks because it won't make enough difference to them. And so there's constantly going to be this resizing, and the markets will change. I think in a different situation, had we not had COVID, you'd have more startup banks right now. But COVID really changed some things pretty dramatically, and it's going to take a while till that smooths out.
Okay.
How about the all digital banking?
Yeah.
Do you think that's here to stay, or is it just what's now?
No, there's a lot of people in this country. I think the all digital will be around, and it'll fit a certain niche that works for a certain group of people. Doesn't mean the end of community banking. It's just here's another way, another option. And people will, truly know people who've gone all digital. And I've got good friends that have run all digital banks. And they're good friends because I like knowing what they're doing and how they do it, and so we talk. But I know people have gone all digital, and then they realized that's not what they needed. It sounded good when they saw the ad come across their screen, right? Because it's easy to sign up for that. Boom, boom, boom. Easy to move money to. Boom, boom, boom. And then they find out, it's not giving me the things I really need.
But
and they come back.
Isn't it a true statement that if I wanted to be all digital with F&M or another community bank, I could more or less do that today?
You can. You can open up your accounts.
So really the benefit here, I don't know that I see the benefit.
So the thing with an all digital bank in general is they're going to have lower overhead, and that gives them the opportunity. They don't always take it, but maybe the opportunity to pay a little bit more on the deposit. Mm-hmm. What some of these banks are having trouble with is, what do I do with the deposit then? Because I don't have the relationships on the loans. And loans you take losses on.
Yeah.
And so some are having a little bit of a challenge of it. So it's not all right. It's not all wrong either. But you are correct in saying, somebody could have a purely digital relationship with our bank without any problem whatsoever. Not everybody realizes a community bank can do that. That's on us to make sure that the world knows that.
I love your analogy with the tide, because I think that's absolutely true. A perfect example is I've seen all kinds of articles where a lot of the retailers are switching back from the self-checkout to the man checkout because they just didn't work out exactly the way that they thought.
Right.
And again, personally, and I feel like I know more about banking than most because I spent 15 years of my life in it. But I still don't know nearly all that I need to know as I make decisions about where money needs to sit and what products are important for me and are going to get me to my goals and so forth.
And I would suggest sit down with your banker. They're going to want to do it. One, they're going to want you to be successful. Two, if we can help you and provide you with services, that's good for us. Let's be honest about it. It's business. But they will do it first and foremost what's good for Jim Miller.
Yeah.
And that's their expertise. We're in here shooting this, and I couldn't operate a single camera here, or I don't know what's sitting on your laptop there. I'd need you for that help. This is what we do, right?
And there's different phases of our lives. What I needed in my 20s in banking is not what I need in my 30s and 40s, right. And is definitely not what I need in my 50s and 60s. So having that opportunity to grow and build that relationship over time also helps as well,
right.
in the banking arena.
100%.
So the current thought process is, is it fair to say that checks are almost antiques right now, paper checks?
We still process a lot of them, but less and less all the time.
Okay.
But they still play a part in things right
They
now.
do.
And that's, again, that's the trick for the banking where the inefficiencies lie, that we got to be able to do all of this. And that's our choice. We could say no checks, it's got to be digital. There are digital banks that's how they run. That doesn't work in this community, right? Maybe a different type of community with a different type of resident, you could do that, but that doesn't work here.
Here's
checks is still there.
Here's a potentially tough one.
Okay.
So, just like the all digital banks, just like the all self checkouts, where are you on the notion of a cashless society? Is that a pipe dream in your view?
No, no, I think it's possible. I don't see it in the next couple of years, but how do we pay for things? It's double click on the phone, it's the card, now you can just tap the card. It's easy. I'm probably one of the few that still carries a couple bucks in the wallet.
I do.
And that's probably as much as my age as anything else. There's some people very worried about the cashless society because, they, whoever you want to pretend they is,
Big brother.
will know everything that you do and where all your money's going.
They will.
And it's interesting. I read something the other day, and I think the guy was halfway right. Was you'll live a better life if you just understand they already know everything
Right.
about
Absolutely.
you. So don't worry about that fight. Worry about how you're living your life and deal with how it comes. But that's a whole philosophical discussion we could have another day. But I think it's possible, but not in the immediate future.
What about interest rates? And I won't ask you to predict the future, but what has happened recently? Have they been trending up, trending down?
Yeah. So COVID happened.
Right.
And depending on what news source you want to use, somewhere between 5 and 7 trillion, which is a number nobody can comprehend, got dumped in the market. And they said, well, this won't be inflationary, but we know the laws of economics. You throw a whole bunch of money in there, it devalues the money, and so of course it was inflationary. And this all happened in a period of about 6 months.
Right.
So we're still suffering from the backlash of that. If you believe that for every action there's an equal and positive reaction, we're living that dream right now.
And what a dream it is.
Yes. And so normally if you were going to borrow money for 30 years, you'd pay a higher rate than if you borrowed it for a month. Right now, it's the exact opposite.
Really?
Yes. You have what's called the inverted yield curve, but it means the short-term money is paying a high. You can go get a CD at 5%, but if you got a 10-year treasury, you'll get about 4%, a little bit north of 4%. It's upside down from what is normal, right?
Okay.
So the rates right now, in general, have kind of stalled out.
Is that on both the deposit and loan side?
For the most part. You know, loans are negotiated. I mean, just being candid, but for the most part, loans, I think you'd find that they've leveled off. Deposit rates have leveled off, maybe dropping a little bit, but there hasn't been a huge move. And you know, Jerome Powell, you know, the Fed chief, is saying we're probably going to have these rates for a little bit longer because inflation is still out there. You know, I won't pretend to be an economist, but you know, the Fed has said they want 2% inflation rate before they start thinking about dropping rates, and we're north of that by any measure. And so far, and on this, I'll tell you how wise I am, because I have a lot of, you know, peers and others who are insisting rates are coming down, rates are coming down. Jerome Powell, love him or hate him, has not lied to anybody for the last several years. He's told everybody exactly what he's doing. So why he would be lying now, it makes no sense.
No,
So
it
if he
doesn't.
says they're going to stay up for a while, we aren't cutting, I
You
would
believe
believe
him.
him.
Yeah.
I would believe him. So.
You have time for one more question. I'll give it to you if you have one.
As far as being a positive trend, right? Do you see us going in the positive, or do you see us with some rough times still ahead? And that's just personally, not just in banking as well, just economically. Because we like to say, well, I like to say, winter is here,
Right.
winter is coming,
Right.
How do you feel?
This is really becoming a philosophy discussion.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
For all of us, in the exact same situation, it can be winter, it can be summer. And life has challenges. There always will be challenges. I'm old enough now that when I hear people today say, well, it's never been worse than it is now. Well, I know other times where people are saying it's never been worse. And if you read history, go back to Civil War times and tell me that it's never been worse, right?
Yeah.
I think, you know, there's going to be opportunities. There's always opportunities if you're looking for it. There'll be challenges because there's always challenges. I'm not directly answering your question
No.
because I can't say, yeah, it's all going this way. You know, if I leave here and I'm in a car accident, I can tell you it's going this way, right?
Right.
But so much is about your attitude and how you face your challenges. As a community bank is what we do. We really strive to acknowledge the challenges, work through them, but keep a positive attitude as you're working through it. And some days are better than others.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not in la-la land, but attitude carries things so many ways. And with a positive attitude, you'll see the opportunities where if you're looking for trouble, you can find it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
and it'll
And I
pile
think
up.
your point is well taken, because in every recession there are businesses that thrive and there are businesses that
Absolutely.
have problems. And you know, the two sides. You know, the optimist says it can't get any worse. The pessimist says sure it can.
Right.
But we have to leave it there. Tim, thank you so much. We
You bet.
appreciate it. That's all the time we have for tonight. We hope you will like us on Facebook. We hope you will follow us on X, formerly Twitter. And we hope you will join us again next week for another visit to the FlipSide. Good night.